Hello all, this is NY, and you are listening to or watching the Bible reading series. Today's chapter is going to be in Genesis 47. If you've not listened to or watched the first episode, please do so, at least for the disclaimer. I've also noticed that sometimes I'll be referring to previous videos that I did, maybe not incomplete, but like an idea. So it may be a good idea to just watch it in series, but I understand if that's not the intent. However, let's start this thing off right. Matthew 6:9 through 13, King James Version. This is the Lord's Prayer. After this manner, therefore, pray ye, Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen. As I said, Genesis 47, King James Version. Jacob's family settles in Goshen. Then Joseph came and told Pharaoh, and said, My father and my brethren and their flocks and their herds, and all that they have, are come out of the land of Canaan. Behold, they are in the land of Goshen. And he took some of his brethren, five men, and presented them unto Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said unto his brethren, What is your occupation? And they said unto Pharaoh, Thy servants are shepherds, both we and also our fathers. They said moreover unto Pharaoh, For to sojourn in the land are we come, for thy servants have no pasture for their flocks, for the famine is sore in the land of Canaan. Now therefore, we pray thee, let thy servants dwell in the land of Goshen. And Pharaoh spake unto Joseph, saying, Thy father and thy brethren are come unto thee. The land of Egypt is before thee, and the best of the land make thy father and brethren to dwell. In the land of Goshen let them dwell, and if thou knowest any men of activity among them, then make them rulers over my cattle. And Joseph brought in Jacob his father, and set him before Pharaoh, and Jacob blessed Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said unto Jacob, How old art thou? And Jacob said unto Pharaoh, The days of the years of my pilgrimage are 130 years. Few and evil have the days of the years of my life been, and have not attained unto the days of the years of the life of my fathers in the days of their pilgrimage. And Jacob blessed Pharaoh, and went out from before Pharaoh. And Joseph placed his father and his brethren, and gave them a possession in the land of Egypt, and the best of the land in the land of Ramses of Pharaoh had commanded. And Joseph nourished his father and his brethren, and all his father's household with bread according to their families. And there was no bread in all the land, for the famine was very sore, so that the land of Egypt and all the land of Canaan fainted by reason of the famine. And Joseph gathered up all the money that was found in the land of Egypt and the land of Canaan for the corn which they bought, and Joseph brought the money into Pharaoh's house. And when money failed in the land of Egypt and the land of Canaan, all the Egyptians came unto Joseph and said, Give us bread, for why should we die in thy presence? For the money faileth. And Joseph said, Give your cattle, and I'll give you for your cattle, if money fail. And they brought their cattle unto Joseph, and Joseph gave them bread in exchange for horses and for flocks, and for the cattle of the herds, and for the asses, and he fed them with bread for all their cattle for that year. When that year was ended, they came unto him the second year, and said unto him, We will not hide it from my lord, how that our money is spent. My lord also hath our herds of cattle. There is not aught left in the sight of my lord, but our bodies and our lands. Wherefore shall we die before thine eyes, both we and our land, buy us and our land for bread, and we and our land will be servants unto Pharaoh, and give us seed, that we may live and not die, that the land be not desolate. Result of the famine. And Joseph bought all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh, for the Egyptians sold every man his field, because the famine prevailed over them, so the land became Pharaoh's. And as for the people, he removed them to cities from one end of the borders of Egypt, even to the other end thereof. Only the land of the priests bought he not, for the priests had a portion assigned them of Pharaoh, and did eat their portion which Pharaoh gave them, wherefore they sold not their lands. Then Joseph said unto the people, Behold, I have bought you this day and your land for Pharaoh. Lo, here is seed for you, and ye shall sow the land. And it shall come to pass in the increase, that ye shall give the fifth part unto Pharaoh, and 4 parts shall be your own, for seed of the field, and for your own, and for your food, and for them of your households, and for food for your little ones. And they said, Thou hast saved our lives. Let us find grace in the sight of my lord. We will be Pharaoh's servants. And Pharaoh made it a law over the land of Egypt unto this day, that Pharaoh should have the fifth part, except the land of the priests and priests only, which became not Pharaoh's. And Israel dwelt in the land of Egypt, in the country of Goshen, and they had possessions therein, and grew multiplied exceedingly. And Jacob lived in the land of Egypt 17 years, so the whole age of Jacob was 147 years. And the time drew nigh that Israel must die, and he called his son Joseph, and said unto him, If now I have found grace in thy sight, put, I pray thee, thy hand under my thigh, and deal kindly and truly with me. Bury me not, I pray thee, in Egypt. But I will lie with my fathers, and thou shalt carry me out of Egypt, and bury me in their burying place. And he said, I will do as thou hast said. And he said, Swear unto me. And he sware unto him. And Israel bowed himself upon the bed's head. That ends the reading portion. A little small overview. So finally, his family has entered Egypt. They're meeting Pharaoh. He presents 5 of his brothers instead of the entire lot. And then he obviously, presents his father. He asks, Pharaoh asks them about what do they do, obviously, and he prepared for this. And obviously they say that they're shepherds. And then he asks their father, Jacob, how old are you? And then he tells him in such a way, but then Jacob blesses Pharaoh. And then from there, we see the famine has grown quite impactfully to a point where everyone in the land of Egypt and Canaan are coming to Joseph for food. And there's this transactional thing where it's money, then it's their livestock, and then finally it's their land and themselves as slaves. So through this process, Joseph acquires the entire land of Egypt and Canaan to Pharaoh, except for the land of the priests, which was given to them by Pharaoh. So if we remember, Pharaoh he is still the authority above Joseph here, and so he can't do that. So he gives to them their portion, and then finally here at the end we see the total years of Jacob, 147 years, and then he makes this moment between him and Joseph about his burial. So we'll go to the commentary. And from among his brothers he took 5 men, and he presented them before Pharaoh. This is verse 2. And from among his brothers, from the most inferior of them in regards to physical strength, who did not appear strong, for if he, Pharaoh, recognized them as being strong, he would make them his warriors. There are the following. Those that he presented would be Reuben, Shimeon, Levi, and Issachar, and Benjamin. Those whose names Moses did double when he blessed them, but the names of the strong ones he doubled. And this is for Yehuda. Hear, O Lord, the voice of Yehuda. And regarding Gad, he said, Blessed be he who granted space to Gad. And regarding Naphtali, he said, Naphtali's wishes shall be well satisfied. And regarding Dan, he said, Dan is a young lion. And so on for Zebulun and for Asher. This is a quotation from Genesis Rabbah 95:4, which is the Agada of Eretz Yisrael in our Babylonian Talmud. However, we find that those whose names Moses doubled were the weak ones, and it was they whom he brought before Pharaoh. As for Yehuda, the 6th one, whose name was doubled, however, it was not doubled because of weakness, but there is another reason for it, as it is stated in Baba, 92 Alpha, in the Bariatha of Sephri and Vizoth Habaraka. We learn, as in our Talmud, these things identified the 5 brothers, as does the Talmud. Namely, the 5 brothers were Gad, Naphtali, Dan, Zebulun, and Asher. So this whole bit here is about identifying the superior strength and force of these individuals. It's an interesting connection. I don't know if I can bring myself to reason with that. That might be a very good point. I guess it didn't seem consequential to me as to the reason why, but I would assume it's something to do with not utilizing the family inappropriately, maybe. But moving on, the land of just as a final point, it's just because I think that he just chose. He took 5 men. There might be something that I'm not seeing, but verse 6: the land of Egypt is open before you, and the best of the land settle your father and your brothers. Let them dwell in the land of Goshen, and if you know that there are capable men among them, make them livestock officers over what is mine. So this is Pharaoh to Joseph. Capable men, skillful in their occupation of pasturing sheep, over what is mine, over my flocks. This is an interesting note because later on, Joseph takes the livestock of the land. So if you think about it, effectively, those that he acquired, he's just going to turn over to his family and those who are with his family. So surely in this moment, Pharaoh is giving over unintentionally the acquisition of the entire Egyptian and Canaan cattle, literally the livestock of everyone, which is an incredible position to have. So Joseph brought his father Jacob and stood him before Pharaoh, and Jacob greeted Pharaoh, and Jacob greeted. This is a greeting as is customary for all who occasionally present themselves before monarchs. So this is a respectful greeting. 9, and Jacob says to Pharaoh, the days of the years of my sojournings are 130 years. The days of the years of my life have been full and miserable, and they have not reached the days of the years of the lives of my forefathers in the days of their sojournings. So here, Jacob is responding to Pharaoh's question, how old are you, essentially? The years of my sojournings, the days of my being a stranger. All my days I have been a stranger in the land, and they have not reached in goodness. So, if we think back to what happened in the garden, what happened with Cain, technically what happened with Noah, there's this constant expulsion from a place that you were meant to be. Per se. So, a stranger, someone who is moving through a land that is not theirs. You have no authoritative positioning here. And he's saying that he hasn't even lived up to the years of his forefathers. So it's kind of like looking at it and saying, I've lived a pretty rough life, and it hasn't even been as long as my those that I've come from. Excuse me. So Jacob blessed Pharaoh and left Pharaoh's presence. So Jacob blessed, according to the custom of all those who leave the presence of princes, that they bless them and take their leave. Now what blessing did he bless him? That the Nile should rise at his approach, because Egypt does not drink rainwater, but the Nile rises and waters it. And since Jacob's blessing, Pharaoh would come to the Nile, and it would rise to greet him and water the land. This is an interesting take, but at least in a pragmatic sense, not so. In a Pharaoh is he is the ultimate authority, not in reality, but in just Egypt. So he is kind of like an image of a god per se. He is the ultimate authority of Egypt, and then to bless him is to pay respect to him and his position. So it is honoring the individual for their position of authority. There's a lot of baggage that comes along with that, and at least our Western mindset that this is just an oppressive sense. This is not that. It is more akin to just observing the person for who the person actually is in the position that they hold. It's just to honor someone. Joseph settled his father and his brothers. This is verse 11 here. And he gave them property in the land of Egypt and the best of the land and the land of Ramesses, as Pharaoh had mandated. Now this is, I don't remember if that's what's said in the King James here. Oh, okay, so it is. So they are given a very an important piece of land. That's the best way I can put it. This here, the land of heroes. And Joseph sustained his father and his brothers and his father's entire household with bread according to the young children. So through Joseph, he is now sustaining, he is giving life to his father and his brothers and the entire household because of their obedience to be in position. With bread according to the young children, according to what was required for all the members of their household. Now there was no food in the entire land, for the famine had grown exceedingly severe in the land of Egypt, and the land of Canaan were exhausted because of the famine. This is verse 13. Now there was no food in the entire land. In Scripture, returns to the earlier topic, to the beginning of the famine years. So we're returning to the concept, the motif here, that there is no food, there's a famine. This exhaustion, because of the famine, an expression of exhaustion, as the Targum renders, and is similar to, this is like one who wearies himself shooting firebrands. So this is, the people are exhausted. They're tired, they're worn out. Then verse 14, and Joseph collected all the money that was found in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan with the grain that they were buying, and Joseph brought the money into Pharaoh's house. With the grain they were buying, they gave him the money. Verse 15, now the money was depleted from the land of Egypt, from the land of Canaan, and all the Egyptians came to Joseph, saying, give us food. Why should we die in your presence, since the money has been used up? So this just means ended. This has been used up. Its meaning is ended, but it's a concept of it's no longer there. Verse 17, so they brought their livestock to Joseph, and Joseph gave them food in return for their horses and for their livestock and flocks and in cattle and donkeys, and he provided them with food in return for all their livestock in that year. He provided them, he guided them. So these two words here, at least in what I've seen, they are quite different and mean totally different things, but it's referring to other moments in which this phrasing is used. So Isaiah 51:18, she had no guide. He leads me beside still waters. So this sense of guidance in Psalm 23:2. So that's where this is. He provided them. It's kind of like a guiding, and he guided them with food in return for all their livestock in that year. So provided makes sense here. Verse 18, that year ended, and they came to him in the second year, and they said to him, we will not hide from my lord, for insofar as the money and the property and animals have been forfeited to my lord, nothing remains before my lord except our bodies and our farmland. And the second year of the famine, or second of the famine years, for insofar as the money and the property and the animals had been forfeited, for insofar as the money and the property have been forfeited, and everything has come into my lord's possession, except our bodies. If not our bodies. So we get this concept. He's got the money. He's got their possessions, like their animals, but what's left but their land and their bodies. So they ask, why should we die before your eyes, both we and our farmland? Buy us and our farmland for food, so that we and our farmland will be slaves to Pharaoh, and give us seed so that we will live and not die, and the soil will not lie fallow. Give us seed with which to sow the soil. Although Joseph said, and for another 5 years there will be neither plowing nor harvest. As soon as Jacob came to Egypt, blessing came with his arrival, and they started to sow, and famine ended. So we learned in the Tosefta of Sotah, will not lie fallow, will not be desolate, an expression denoting a fallow field which is not plowed. So here's a non-common thing to at least our time frame, if you're, a younger listener, fallow is when you allow farmland to overgrow itself so that the nutrients in the ground returns to what it once was. So right now, the ground lies fallow. It is not being used. So they want to return it to its agricultural glory that they had at one point. Maybe glory is the improper word there. Return it to its agricultural use. So Joseph bought all the farmland of the Egyptians to Pharaoh, for the Egyptians sold each one his field, for the famine had become too strong for them, and the land became Pharaoh's. And the land became Pharaoh's. It was acquired by him. So there's something that I kind of want to personally point out here. Take it or leave it. If we do a little bit of retrospect on this, imagine ourselves in a world in which there's famine, there's nothing to be given, and we have been used up for our money. My bank accounts are empty. What do I have to give? Well, I give up my cars, I give up the things that can produce, per se. So I've given up my stores. I've given up my things, my possessions, cars, guitars, things of high value, well, even of medium to low value, anything that can acquire me getting food. Then finally, I am left with what? There's still a famine. I still don't have food. What do I have left? Myself, technically. This is a necessary concept in a lot of scriptural referencing, to remember that we are not our things, we are not the place we stay, we are not we're not even the physical body that we have. We can sell that too. That is not us. We can't technically sell who I am individually. I am who I am individually, whether I am shackled or not. Now, this may seem, counter to Western mindsets, but this is the entirety of what's going on. They have nothing, and the only way to survive is to give everything. Now, this is a common concept all the way up to Jesus' time, in the sense that if we die to ourselves, the things that we claim, well, I'm this, I'm that, I have this, I do this, that's not you, that's not me. To give up all those things. So they're giving up everything that one could even proclaim to be themselves, and they're reduced to the final self. If we want to use like psychological terminology, we are having an ego death. I don't know how much I, want to say how well that fits into this framework. I just simply want to point out that the entire land is going into a process of lowering oneself. They had all these things, they were fine, and now they are slowly being degraded into the lowest thing, right? To the lowest being that one could be. Now, to be low does not mean to be bad or immoral or wicked or of ill repute, of like to lower oneself in this framework. They're still people. They're still themselves. So it's not I have to be very careful, because there's so much baggage that comes along with this type of thinking that is not imparted here, that I'm trying to point out. And I think I've probably made my point, but the simplest way to think about this is, and I'm going to return to this, this is why it's so important that I have to hit this, because even in the Rava, it hits this, and it doesn't say it concisely. I might even read it here shortly. But anyways, keep that in mind here. So, moving down here, so Joseph, this is verse 20, bought all the farmland of the Egyptians for Pharaoh, for the Egyptians sold each one his field, for the famine had become too strong for them, and the land became Pharaoh's. So Pharaoh acquired everything. Okay? And he transferred the populace to the cities from one end of the boundary of Egypt to the other end. He transferred the populace. Joseph transferred them from city to city so that they would remember that they have no more share in the land, and he settled those of one city and another. Scripture did not have to write this except to let you know Joseph's praise that he intended to remove the stigma from his brothers so that they, the Egyptians, would not call them exiles. From one end of the boundary of Egypt. So he did with all the cities in the kingdom of Egypt, from one end of the boundary to the other end of its boundary. So the core takeaway is he uprooted everyone and then redistributed them. So what that says may be true. In my mind, I'm thinking, well, if you've sold everything, but you stay in the same, like if I've sold everything, but I stay in my house, in the end, I'm going to assume that it's still my house, that I still own it, but I don't. So what he may be doing, maybe, is reallocating them to different areas, so they're now foreigners and not foreigners in their own land, but foreigner in the location in which they are alien now to the location that they're going. So I couldn't, like, if I was forced into another household, I couldn't say that house was my own, because it's categorically not. It never was, and it never is, and it never will be. Well, it could be, but that's for another time. Only the farmland of the priests he did not buy, for the priests had an allotment from Pharaoh, and they ate their allotment that Pharaoh had given them. Therefore, they did not sell their farmland. The priests, for every instance of this, means a minister to deities, except those that are an expression of high rank, like the governor of Midian. Here we start to see this interesting concept of individuals could potentially be considered deities historically. The priest had an allotment of so much bread per day. That may have actually come up earlier. I just may not have identified it, or maybe I have and I just forgot. Verse 23. Joseph said to the people, "Behold, I have bought you your farmland today for Pharaoh. Behold, you have seed, so sow the soil." Behold, so this actually, the word here is here, like it means here, but as behold, I have laid your way on your head. Now, verse 24, it shall be concerning the crops that you shall give a fifth to Pharaoh, and the remaining 4 parts shall be yours for seed for your fields, for your food, for those in your household, and for your young children to eat. For seed for your fields every year, for those in your household, for food for the manservants and the maidservants who are in your houses, your young children, Hebrew young children. They replied, "You have saved our lives. Let us find favor in my Lord's eyes. We will be slaves to Pharaoh. Let us find favor that you should do this for us, as you have said. And we will be slaves to Pharaoh to pay him his tribute every year as a statute that will not be repealed." Now, this is not something that we in our time frame see as a sign of slavery. We see this as tribute, as taxation. But if you read that, that's not what it means. But that's what they're doing. They're paying a fifth of their portion to Pharaoh, the government, if you will. Who have they become? Who have they become enslaved by then? I'm not going to say much more on that, but that might, if you're not seeing the connection of our time frame now, and that this is such a cautious thing, because that doesn't mean that, like, we need to do anything about that. It's just maybe we need to reevaluate these words, reevaluate our perspective of these things. Like I said, it doesn't mean we do anything about it per se, but our perspective does need to change, in the sense that who is it that we consider ourselves enslaved by? What does that word mean? It doesn't mean that I'm shackled per se and told to till the land in these frameworks. So in the biblical sense, we can now see, at least in first usage, this concept of what that actually means. So when we read these words and later frameworks, we may be imparting a historian fallacy in the sense that we're thinking they're meaning something that they're not meaning because that's not what the word is being used for. But it also should have some retrospect on ourselves and in the way that which we frame the world in which we operate. And it doesn't mean that we need to now become like we shouldn't raise our fist up at something. That's not my intent. It's not my intent at all. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It's just to be aware of the place in which we are. Verse 27. And Israel dwelt in the land of Egypt and the land of Goshen, and they acquired property in it, and they were prolific and multiplied greatly. And Israel dwelt in the land of Egypt, where in the land of Goshen, which is part of the land of Egypt. They acquired property. So this was an acquisition. They acquired property. So like this may seem counterintuitive because it's like, well, didn't Joseph, acquire all the land in the area? Yeah, but they were also given this land as well by Pharaoh. So there's some time gating parts to this, but there's also like process of acquisition. Like, is this happening after the fact? Like, did they now, take their cattle into the land, and then through that process, they acquired it afterwards? I'm not sure, but that does say that they acquired a vast amount of property. And they were prolific and multiplied greatly. See there, they acquired property, an expression of holding. So to see how this is like, this is actually not even what I was saying. So it's good to kind of understand what this is meaning. They were so Pharaoh goes like this: You will find your best, and they will take my cattle and care for my cattle. That doesn't mean that it's their cattle. It means that they're holding the cattle. They're stewards of the cattle. So it's not a proprietary thing, if I have that word right. It's more of like a stewardship. Anyways, verse 28 here. And Jacob lived in the land of Egypt for 17 years in Jacob's days. The years of his life were 147 years. And Jacob lived. Why is this section completely closed? Okay, so I'm going to have to describe this. Typically, in the way that things were written down. So I'm going to read this because as soon as our father Jacob passed away, the eyes at the heart of Israel were closed. It became dark because of the misery of the slavery, for they, the Egyptians, commenced to subjugate them. Another explanation, that he, Jacob, attempted to reveal the end of the exile to his sons, but it was closed off, concealed from him. Okay, all three of these are referring to this closing of the writing. Typically between the writing, there's like a 7-space emptiness. Here, that does not exist. There's like a one letter space, basically, if I have this all correctly. And they're asking, why is it written such? Why is this space that is intended to be like, someone will come along and go, well, why is there not a space here? Because that's intended to be like, there should be an intended space. And so they're assuming that the reason why this is closed in the way that they're saying that is because of these things. So there is if I opened up a book and the book was consistent throughout everything else, and then I came to a place where the page delineation and the paragraph delineation had an odd interaction, you would sit there and look at it and go, well, there's some reason why that this is going on. So in at least our Western or English reading here, that's not apparent. There's nothing here that delineates that. We just move from verse 28 to 29, right? Even the verses themselves in the chapters are way after this. Way after this. And so the point here to be made is there a reason, and what is that reason? Excuse me. Verse 29. When the time drew near for Israel to die, he called his son Joseph and said to him, if I have now found favor in your eyes, now place your hand beneath my thigh. You shall deal with me loving kindness and truth. Do not bury me now in Egypt. Having some phonetic challenges today. when the time drew near for Israel to die, every one of whom it is stated that his days drew near to die did not attain the lifespan of his forefathers. Yitzhak lived 180 years and Jacob lived only 147 years. And in connection with David, the expression of drawing near is mentioned. His father lived 80 and he lived 70. So there's this concept of when it says to draw near, when death draws near, that means that the lifespan of the son is going to be shorter than the father's, at least in what I can understand here. He called his son Yosef, the one who had the ability to do this. So there's like a, how do I keep this short? There is a position that is required for this particular moment in time, and he sees that it's Yosef. Now place your hand beneath my thigh and swear. So this is a statement upon the covenant. So think about this. All right, this may get a little vulgar here, but it doesn't mean thigh. It literally means the organ that was circumcised. So this may seem really, really awkward for our Western minds because we're so attuned to thinking that we need to be morally clean with our with sexual things. This isn't sexual. It has nothing to do with this. In fact, it is entirely related to the covenant between Abraham and God. So that's why it says here, as explained in the narrative of Abraham and Eliezer, he meant that Joseph should swear by covenant of the circumcision. So let's go all the way back then. What he's doing is similar to when somebody places their hand on the Bible. Like, I am telling you the truth, and if I'm not, then this covenantal agreement is now it's no longer. It has ceased. I revoke the covenant, which is. This is a difficult thing, and I'm not sure exactly where to the swearing part, because I do know that there's we are informed not to swear later on in the Bible, but as of right now, I will state that I'm not so sure that it's the same thing. I don't think that the intentions are similar. Like, the word swear is the same, but the intention is different. Kind of like the way that I was saying that when we frame, or at least think of the metaphor, the concept of a slave is not what they were referring to in Genesis. They were referring to someone who now has to pay a fealty to a governor. An entity or a person that is above them. Loving kindness and truth. Loving kindness that is done with the dead is true loving kindness, for one does not expect any payment or reward. This is for me, I see what it's saying. I partially agree with it, yes. Deal with me in such a way because you know that you won't get anything out of it. I do appreciate and respect that concept, because I think that there is validity in it. But I think what he's meaning here is be consistent with me. It's the same thing as the concept of the swear. He's will you be true to your word? Will you uphold the thing that we are about to say? Kind of like God coming to Abraham, right? Will you maintain faithfulness to this thing that we are about to do? Do not bury me now in Egypt, because its soil is destined to become lice, which will crawl under my body, and because those who die outside the Holy Land will not be resurrected except with the pain of rolling through underground passages, also so that the Egyptians will not deify me. Okay. If you've listened all the way to this point, there are some oddities that we in our Western framework come across, and we're like, what? And this is one of them. There is a concept that if one passes away and is buried outside of the Holy Land, the physical Holy Land, like we're not talking about like some metaphysical place, not some, phenomenal things. It's not a, it's legitimately the Holy Land, the land that was called holy, Beersheba, the well that things happened. The agreements were made. So it's physically meaning that. Sorry, I had a little bit of a tangent in my mind that I had to control. So this pain of rolling through underground passages, they think that if you pass away and are buried in another location, you will be able to roll through underground passages, if the Lord allows you to, back to the Holy Land to be resurrected in the Messianic era. So that is one of the paradigms, the frameworks in which that they observe this. So, do not bury me now in Egypt. And so they give reason to this. I will lie with my forefathers, and you shall carry me out of Egypt, and you shall bury me in their grave. And he said, I will do as you say. This is verse 30. Excuse me. My stomach is not happy with me today for some weird reason. I will lie with my forefathers, and you shall carry me out of Egypt. So I will lie with my forefathers. Hebrew, this Hebrew here is literal. I will lie. The vav is connected to the beginning of the previous verse. Place now your hand beneath my thigh and swear to me, for I am destined to lie with my forefathers. You shall carry me out of Egypt. We cannot say, however, that I will lie with my forefathers means lay me to rest with my forefathers in the cave, because afterwards it is written, and you shall carry me out of Egypt, and you shall bury me in their grave. Moreover, we find everywhere that the expression lying with one's forefathers denotes expiration, not burial. As in, and David lay with his forefathers, and afterwards he was buried in the city of David. Yeah. So there's this nuance of time of passing, time of burial, and such here. And finally in verse 31, and he said, swear to me. So he swore to him, and Israel prostrated himself on the head of the bed. And Israel prostrated himself, although the lion is king. When it is time of the flocks, bow down to him. On the head of the bed, he turned around to the side of the Shekinah. From here, the sages deduced that the Shekinah is at the head of a sick person. Another explanation is here he prostrated himself to God because his offspring were perfect, insofar as not one of them was wicked, as is evidenced by the fact that Joseph was a king, and furthermore, that even though he was captured among the heathens, he remained steadfast in his righteousness. I'm going to point out something here, because I think that this is necessary. So there's an argument out there that says that biblical scriptures are inaccurate, or something along those lines, because we do not have original text, things were mistranslated, things were not properly conserved to the time of Daniel, so on and so forth. There's many, many arguments. But I'm going to lay one to rest, at least hopefully, or at least bring you into the paradigm in which I think that there is consistency. In the Septuagint, in the same chapter, same verse, and he said, swear to me, and he swore to him. So, okay. And if you already read it on, you'll see what I'm saying. And he said, swear to me. So he swore to him. And Israel prostrated himself on the head of the bed. And he swore to him. And Israel did reverence, leaning on the top of his staff. So here, a lot of people are going to look at it and go, see, look. And if most likely I'm not going to be, I don't know, maybe, who knows who I'll reach. But if you are an individual who is like trying to handle this type of argument, right? I'm gonna show you exactly what they're not actually being able to reference. Here is an example. And Yisrael did reverence, leaning on the top of his staff. Okay, now, understandably, the Septuagint and the Masoretic here come from different per se location or orients. Like for instance, here the Masoretic, from my understanding so far, is that there's an individual that Rashi, which is not actually his name, it's an acronym for who he is referring to the one that translated this, who was a French individual, taking it from its original, writings, right? However, the Septuagint isn't quite like that. The LXX, right? So here, when it says, "And Israel did reverence, leaning on the top of his staff," there is some difficulty here. This word, mita, and I'm probably mispronouncing that, right? Mital. It refers to couch, bed, or a bier. I'm not sure what a bier is, but I assume that's a little bed or a bed or chamber. This word here, there's a little bit of so in Hebraic, it was only consonants that were written, not vowels. Vowels are not written. So like for us, I is not written, A is not written. It's inferred. So you would only see, now we have things that denote or annotate this, right? So this right here is the word, but the little dots and those little markers are how one is supposed to now infer the vowels. That did not exist before. Now, I'm not sure how I would find this, but I do know Mata or Mateh, it's like Matteh, something along those lines, or EW, is the exact same consonants. Exactly the same. Now, this is where somebody might go, we've got you. It's like, that's not entirely true. And I'll get to my point here in a second. So the confusion is warranted. There is a warranted confusion. Is it a bed or a staff? Now, here's my catch. Does it matter? If I read this, "But I will sleep with my fathers, and thou shalt carry me out of Egypt, and bury me in their sepulchre. And he said, I will do according to thy word. And he said, swear to me. And he swore to him. And Israel did reverence, leaning on the top of his staff," or head of the bed. "I will lie with my forefathers, and you shall carry me out of Egypt, and you shall bury me in the grave." Different word for sepulcher. And he said, "I will do as you say." And he said, swear to me. So he swore to him, and Israel prostrated himself on the head of the bed. Both of these things, both of these phrasings, mean to lower oneself. Now, returning back to the portion that I was reading, and I was like, follow me here and keep this in mind. This chapter, remember, chapters aren't really entirely a thing, but we use them to orient ourselves and, do as I'm doing, where I'm going chapter to chapter, so I have at least a sequence. That didn't exist per se, right? When I'm reading this, it means to lower. That's it. And to keep that in mind as we think about this entire story, as it were. It's the testimony of Israel. It doesn't make much difference whether it's a bed or a staff or a chair or they don't really speak of chairs back then. It was usually a mat on the ground. Excuse me. It's the concept, it's the thought, it's the I hate to say meaning, because you would be like, yeah, but the meaning is bed and staff. That's not the experiential thing. Is that Jacob brought himself lower. Now here's where this is why it's important. When it is time of the fox, bow down to him. You're like, what does that even mean? All right. So in this, we have some very difficult pieces here. For instance, there's a moment when it's talking about you come to a place where you die. There's a moment in everyone's life that we all pass away, right? As you live, you will lie down, but you will not die, as it is stated. The time for Israel to die approached. What is approached? The Holy One, blessed be He, said, the day complains against you, saying that it would stand still. It is like a person who says, so-and-so has attacked another, that is Vekirovu. Probably mispronounced that one incredibly, but everyone in those regard is written that the time for him to die approached, did not reach the days of his ancestors. He did not reach the days of his ancestors. The sages said that they lived more than 400 years, but David lived only 70 years. He did not reach the days of his ancestors. Therefore, approach is written in his regard. So there's this concept of death, right? It's approaching. It's coming to you. So when that happens, you lose everything. You will lose everything. There will be a time in everyone's life that they will no longer have authority. And so, sorry, I'm trying to make sure that I say this properly, because it's probably, I have to say, it's maybe one of the most important things that I've come across in at least my reading so far. So here, the time for Israel approached, it is written, there is no person who rules the spirit to retain the spirit. There is no dominion on the day of death. So you and I, we do not have this capability to restrain, retain, maintain, keep the spirit within ourselves. We don't have that. The trumpets that Moses crafted in the wilderness when he was tending toward death, the Holy One, blessed be He, sequestered them so that another would not sound it, and they would come to him, as it is written, assemble to me all the elders of your tribes. This was to realize what is written. There is no dominion on the day of death. You no longer hold any authority. You don't hold a position anymore. You will be passing. You will be lowering. Your position will be lowered. There is no dominion on the day of death. When Zimri performed that action, what is written here, he went after the man of Israel into the tent, where was Moses. And would Phinehas speak before Moses? Rather, it is to realize there is no dominion on the day of death. Death is nothing other than an expression of lowering. Salvation was given to Phinehas, and Moses was lowered. Of David, too, it is written, King David was old when he was about to die. What is written in his regard? The time for King David to die approached. It is not written here, but rather the time for David to die approached. Jacob, too, when he was about to die, he began lowering himself before Joseph, and he said to him, Please, if I have found favor in your eyes, when he approached death, as it is stated, the time for Israel to die approached. Now, I'm sure some people may have keyed in on this. Salvation was given to Phinehas. That is a return or a placing of position of stewardship. It is giving over this life to the other who is living. I have no control over my position being given over. I might fight it. I might try to fight it. I might try to do everything that I possibly can to fight what will inevitably come to my life. I mean, do everything in my life possible to prolong my death. That doesn't mean that death won't come. Death will come. And it's coming for all of us. It will happen. And commonly in this rabbinic text, there's a thought of two deaths. Two deaths that you can have. Now, this is, I think, personally cleared up a little bit in New Testament in what Jesus does, but let's maintain this lowering. He is now lowered. The phrasing here at the very end is, although the lion is king, when it is time of the fox, bow down to him. It will soon be Joseph. It was Israel. It will soon be Joseph, right? And so this act here that prostrated himself on the head of the bed maintains, leaning on the top of his staff, this concept of a lowering, a leaning on something, a no longer being in a place of, I hesitate to say, but authority. It's not that it's authority, it's a responsibility. He's giving up that responsibility here. That's the same thing that was happening with the land of Egypt. I'm trying to say that there's credence in what I'm saying because it's also being shown here, but not just that. That is the same thing we see from the very beginning of Genesis to the very end, and we're coming up on the end of Genesis. And a lot of the times things will, like in a good story, it will begin with something and it will end with the very thing it began with. Right? We're not exactly at the end, but it's starting to tie itself back, right? And what is this? This is the death. This is Israel drew nigh for him to die. What is it? What did God mean by this death? And we're starting to see through the life of this whole thing what that means. It's not this. I have to hesitate because I'm still kind of exploring this myself. It is not a sense of incapacity. It is a loss of position. We have lost position. We are no longer positioned in Eden. Israel here is losing his position. The people of Egypt are losing their position. But who was established in a position? Joseph was. Who's maintaining this position? Joseph is. Not in a strong-armed, authoritarian way. It is, I will maintain my position that I've been put in. Think about it. Joseph didn't fight for this. Joseph didn't demand this. Joseph didn't argue his point to be here. He was just put there. Not in the sense of like it came about because he could have declined. He could have declined all of this. We can look back at the terms of Esau, Jacob and Esau. Esau gives up his birthright. Now, I understand that this may sound like I'm talking about some obtainment of a salvific thing. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I know that's that word that we use here, the common vernacular salvation. That's not what we're talking about here. We're not talking about some type of like acquiring of a thing. This isn't a thing. It's not a thing to be had. It's an interactive thing. It's an interactive processes in which at one time Joseph is going to give up his position. And the question is does he do it willingly? And we see here Israel does it willingly, right? He's about to do it willingly. He's about to say, I am no longer going to hold on to these things and force my way to demand what I think is right and what I think is wrong. He's identifying that. So hopefully that gives a little bit of clarity to this. Comment in the at least tell me what you think in the comments. But hopefully this gives a little bit more maybe an interesting perspective of what's going on here and the reestablishment of position, a reestablishment of being in one's place and time. Maybe a little Eckhart Tolle, if you know who that is. If you don't, then it's just being present within the time, not looking back nor forward per se, but being present in what's happening. Responding to the demands or that necessitates you in the moment. There's also one final thing that I would like to point out, and then I'll close up with this. This is an interesting depiction of the establishment of a worldly positioning. Pharaoh is kind of like, think about it. I said that the priests cater to the deity, and one of the things that Israel is concerned about, at least in the burial piece, was that he would be considered also so that the Egyptians will not deify me. He doesn't want to become a god, a thing to be worshipped. That's not his place. He sees that, and he wants to be put where he is supposed to be put, not where he thinks he should be put. It's where he should be put in accordance with what God is asking for him, and therefore he has to rely on Joseph to do so. But that's for another conversation. We see this framework. We see how everything is obtained by the worldly Pharaoh, but with one who is observing God's intent over his own, Joseph, things go right, and people are saved, right? From not an afterworld thing. That's not what this piece is talking about. It's in our time and place. It creates order, and in a disorderly time frame. So, anyways, thank you so much for listening to the end. Hopefully, this gave you something to think about, and I pray that God blesses you. Until next time.